Today we are going to make our own Potter's stamp, and here are examples of what our stamp will look like. So this is one that I made, and it has a handle, and on the end I put one of my initials. I actually got this idea from one of my students. She carved a cute little cat face there, and I thought, oh, I never even thought of that. I love it when I get ideas from my students. Here's a stamp that a student made. Notice it has a design on the side and a design on the flat bottom, and the handle's a little thinner than mine. I recommend you make it a little more on the thick side because I've seen these handles break. A girl accidentally drops it and the handle snaps off. So I'd make it a little bit thicker. So how do these stamps work? I'm going to just show you on this piece of clay. You take your stamp and you press it in, and you get a really beautiful texture. Can you see that? And the side, you can roll a texture. So here's another stamp that one of my students made, a really beautiful design. Very simple, doesn't have to be complicated. And then the design on the side looks like that. So what do you need to make this? You need some slip. So you're going to get your container and you're going to put a little blob of slip. You don't need very much, just it's a small blob. You need a dowel tool, and it might be a needle tool that has an end sharpened, or you might have a separate dowel tool in your kit. You need your yellow cleaning rag, and mine is, I wet it, and you need a blue bucket that's full of water to clean your tools at the end. You need your cloth so that it doesn't stick to the table, and you need a handful of clay. You don't need a lot of clay for this, about the size of an orange or maybe a baseball. And we're going to use pugged clay or clay from the bag so that we don't have to worry about wedging it. So here's my ball of clay. I'm going to divide it in half, and I'm going to just kind of slap it into, roll it and pat it, and just keep shaping it until I have a nice round ball. So it takes a little bit of time. If you want to fast forward this section, you can, because I just have to get it to be as nice and smooth and symmetrical of a ball of clay as I can. So I'm just kind of pinching, turning, and I'm rushing a little because I don't want this movie to be too long. But I like to do a lot of just kind of slapping and a little bit of pinching to get it into a nice round ball. So how big should this ball be? Well, this is a little bit bigger than a golf ball. It's hard to say. I've had girls make really big stamps and they're really cool. They may have started with a ball as big as a baseball. I've had girls make tiny stamps. Those are fine too. So it's really kind of up to you. This is probably about the size of a small tangerine, perhaps. All right, so I've been pinching and smoothing over the cracks and just trying to get it as round as I can. When I'm happy with, it looks pretty round, now I'm going to take it and I'm going to start to flatten it. So I'm just patting it up and down, up and down. I'm going to flip it over. And what I'm trying to do is just to get a nice round, kind of thick disc of clay. So now I'm going to roll it and tap it. Try to get it nice and round. And the reason you want it to be round is because, remember, we're going to create a stamp that has two stamping areas, the flat side and the edge. So two different ways that you can use your stamp. So I'm just patting it and trying to get it to be even, the same amount of thickness, and as round as I can. If there's a crack, smooth it over. Spend a little time getting a really nice round, even disc of clay. Okay, I feel that I'm rushing a little, but I don't want this movie to be too long. You can always fast forward it. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's not perfectly round, but I can still do a little more shaping. Now I'm going to take and pinch off my handle. And my handle, remember, I'd rather have it be a little too thick than a little too thin. So what I'm doing is I'm squeezing it, and I'm going to roll it and to kind of do like a thick coil. So I'm kind of rolling it across my cloth. I'm kind of tapping it a little. And what I'm trying to do is to shape a handle that's pretty sturdy, not super thick, but not skinny either. I'd say this one is a little on the too skinny side just because it could break. It didn't break, but it could. So I roll my handle, and when I think that, oh, that's about right, I'm gonna tap it to get the bottom flat where I'm gonna attach it. Well, I think I'm gonna roll it thinner because I want my stamp to dry, and I just realized that it's gonna be hard to dry if it's that thick. So I'm going for a little bit less than an inch thick. So I'm gonna keep rolling it a little bit more. So it's a short coil, so I'm just using one hand to roll it. If it were a long coil, I would use two hands. And okay, now I'm going to taper the end so it's not so, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller on the top. Okay, I think it doesn't need to be this long, so I'm going to take my needle tool, and I'm just going to, I think I'm going to cut it off. It doesn't need to be quite this long, and I think I'm going to cut the top off too. That's plenty long enough for my handle. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to add my handle to my stamp, and so there's a clay rule that if you had me in middle school or you've had me before, you probably can remember. It's called scratch to attach. So I'm basically just scratching up the clay, and to be on the safe side, it's a good idea to scratch both surfaces that you're going to connect. So scratch to attach. And now I'm going to use my slip to be hip. And slip is nothing but watery clay. That's all it is. Slip to be hip. Now I'm going to attach it. And another thing that seems to help is if you kind of twist it. Can you see I'm kind of twisting it on? Make sure you get it. And then the last rule is smooth to groove. And so I'm going to take, I could use my finger, I like using a tool. So what I'm doing is I'm like smoothing it on all the way around. I'm smoothing it on. Now the very last thing I need to do is put my name on my stamp. And you can put it in two places. You could put it on your handle. This is why I like to have my tool is really gobbed up with clay. That's why I love to have my yellow rag handy so I can get a nice clean surface. So I want you to get in the habit of first and last name on your pottery. Please do not put your initials. I get so tired of trying to guess whose things are whose when they just put initials. So put your first and your last name. If your last name or your first name is really long, maybe you can get by with just an initial, but make it easy for me to know whose it is. Do not put it here. I've had girls do that because you're going to carve your design in this tomorrow. Do not put it here because you're going to carve a design. So my stamp isn't really perfect. I need to do a lot more smoothing, but I want to just make this video short. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set this on a tray. I'm going to set it on its side so that it can start to firm up, because if I set it like this, the bottom is not going to dry, and that's the part we're going to start carving tomorrow. I'm going to put it on the tray to dry. I'm going to monitor this, and when it's leather hard, we're going to do our final smoothing, and then we're going to do our carving. So it should look something like this with your name on it. Clean up, you're going to take your rag, that's why you have it. You're going to clean your hands. You're going to clean your tools. You're going to catch any clay crumbs that are on your cloth. You're going to try to capture them with your rag or pick them up. And this is my leftover clay. The leftover clay, we are not ever going to throw it away. We're going to put it back in the bin. We always recycle our clay. Now I'm going to take my rag and I'm going to rinse it in my blue bucket. And in order to get it clean, you have to really like swish it around, agitate like a washing machine would do. And then you're going to wring it out. You're going to wipe your table. I'm sure there's going to be clay crumbs on your table. So you're going to wipe it down. And you're going to put all your tools back. And the last thing you're going to do after you've wiped your table, there's no clay crumbs anywhere, you're going to get a Clorox wipe and wipe it again. Then you're going to go dump your bucket after you've rinsed your rag one more time. Try to get all the clay out of it. And again, the only way to do that is to do a lot of agitation. Go to the sink, dump your water, rinse your bucket, maybe rinse your rag one more time. But I love this blue bucket. It's like having extra sinks in the room. And one of the hazards of pottery is clay dust. So we'll try to do as much cleaning as we can at our table with our yellow rag and our blue buckets. Okay, go and make your stamp.